You remember the story, don't you? A beautiful princess, a magical kiss, and a charming prince emerging from amphibian form to sweep her off her feet. Disney's Princess and the Frog gave us jazz music, New Orleans charm, and the comforting notion that true love conquers all species barriers. It's a delightful story. It's also completely wrong. Welcome back to Twisted Tales Theater, where we excavate the buried truths beneath your favorite fairy tales. The Real Frog Prince contains no romantic kisses, no gentle transformations, and certainly no jazz soundtracks. Instead, it offers us something far more disturbing. A 4,000-year-old echo of sacred rituals involving divine beings, violent transformation, and the kind of bedroom arrangements that would raise serious questions in any modern context. If you're ready to discover what Disney didn't want you to know about amphibian royalty, help us unseal this ancient volume by hitting that like button. Trust me, you'll never look at a pawn the same way again. Let's begin with what the brothers Grimm actually wrote in 1812, shall we? Is somewhere between their manuscript and your childhood bedtime stories, someone decided to perform some rather creative editing. In the authentic version, there lived a king whose youngest daughter was so beautiful that even the sun paused each morning to admire her face. A poetic sentiment, though one has to wonder about the cosmic implications of a celestial body with apparent attention issues. This princess spent her days in the great forest near the palace playing with her most treasured possession, a golden ball. Now, golden balls weren't exactly common playground equipment in medieval times, but we'll file that under royal privilege and move on. One fateful day, the ball slipped from her hands and vanished into a deep, silent well. The princess wept bitterly, her sobs echoing through the trees like the soundtrack to every teen drama ever made. And then came the voice. "What troubles you, princess?" it croaked. She looked down to see a frog, green, glistening, and described in the original text as hideous. Charming first impression, really. Creature offered to retrieve her golden ball, but at a price that would make any modern parent reach for their legal counsel. "Well, I want to sit beside you," said the frog, "eat from your plate, drink from your cup, and sleep in your bed." Now, in today's world, we might call this concerning boundary issues. In 1812, apparently this was considered a reasonable business proposition. The princess, displaying the kind of decision-making skills that would earn her terrible reviews on any medieval dating app, agreed immediately. She figured she'd been clever, make the promise, get the ball, and then conveniently forget the whole amphibian arrangement. A classic case of underestimating your contractual obligations. But that evening, as royal families gathered for dinner, there came a knock at the palace door. "Princess, youngest daughter of the king, open up the door for me." The princess, suddenly developing a healthy sense of regret, was forced to confess everything to her father. The king listened to her tale of questionable aquatic agreements and delivered the kind of parental wisdom that would make modern family therapists weep. "What you have promised, you must keep," he declared. "Go and let the frog in." And so began what might be history's most uncomfortable dinner party. The frog hopped to the royal table, ate from the princess's golden plate, and drank from her crystal cup. The original text notes that the frog ate heartily, while the princess could barely manage a bite. One imagines the dinner conversation was somewhat stilted. But the real discomfort began when bedtime arrived. "I am tired and want to sleep as well as you do," croaked the frog. "Pick me up or I'll tell your father." The princess, faced with what we might charitably call an unusual sleepover arrangement, carried the creature upstairs. The Grimm brothers note that she held him by 2 fingers like something rotten, detail that really captures the romantic atmosphere of the moment. Now here's where Disney took some rather significant creative liberties. You're expecting the kiss, aren't you? It's a gentle moment of true love's recognition that transforms beast into prince. Prepare to be disappointed. What actually happened was this. As the frog crept toward her bed, demanding his promised place beside her, the princess's patience finally snapped. In a moment of pure rage, she sprang from her bed, seized the disgusting creature, and hurled him against the wall with all her might. "Now you will have your peace, you disgusting frog," she cried. And in that moment of violence, not love, not a kiss, but raw, furious rejection, the transformation occurred. Cold green skin gave way to warm flesh. The bulging eyes became bright and human. A handsome prince stood before her, freed from his curse by her anger rather than her affection. They married the next day, because apparently attempted amphibian murder was considered an excellent foundation for royal matrimony in medieval Germany. The strangest part, this isn't just a German story. Versions appear across Europe and far beyond, suggesting we're dealing with something much older than the brothers Grimm realized. In 16th century Scotland, we find the well at the world's end. A girl must fetch healing water to save her dying mother. At this sacred well, always described as lying at the edge of the world, a frog appears, promising help in exchange for marriage. Her older sisters refuse the bargain, but the youngest agrees. After retrieving the water, she honors her word and shares her bed with the creature. But here's the twist. The frog is then decapitated, and it's this act of violence that breaks the spell. In various Slavic traditions, we encounter tales of the vodnik, green-skinned, lip-fingered water spirits who collect the souls of the drowned in porcelain jars and sometimes emerge to seek human brides. These stories follow the same pattern: desperate woman, sacred water source, inhuman helper demanding intimate access, and transformation through violence. The details shift. Golden balls become healing draughts. Throwing becomes beheading. But the bones of the story remain consistent across cultures and centuries. Why does this story always begin at a well? Why are these wells so often described as standing at the edge of the world? Across Europe, wells and springs weren't just water sources. They were sacred threshold spaces where the boundary between worlds grew thin. Archaeological evidence from sites like Lyn Serig Bach in Wales and the Thorsberg Bog in Denmark reveals layers of offerings, weapons, jewelry, even human remains, all cast into dark waters as gifts to whatever watched from below. These weren't casual sacrifices. They were part of elaborate ritual systems that modern scholars are only beginning to understand. The water wasn't just life-giving. It was transformative, dangerous, alive with otherworldly intelligence. In many traditions, such places were guarded by spirits or deities who demanded payment for their gifts. They didn't just quench thirst, they healed, they prophesied, and sometimes they claimed something precious in return. Folklorists classify the Frog Prince under the broader category of animal bridegroom tales. Story type ATU 4-5 in the International Folklore Classification System. This ancient narrative pattern appears in Beauty and the Beast, East of the Sun, West of the Moon, The Snake Prince of India, and dozens more stories across Europe and Asia. In 2016, researchers at the University of Lisbon used phylogenetic analysis, a method borrowed from evolutionary biology, to trace these folktales across cultures. Their findings were remarkable. These stories of animal bridegrooms are likely over 4,000 years old, dating back to Proto-Indo-European society. This isn't just entertainment. It's one of humanity's oldest story patterns, preserved across millennia, because it captures something fundamental about our relationship with the unknown. The divine and the transformative power of crossing boundaries we're not supposed to cross. In the ancient world, such unions weren't aberrations. They were ritualized expressions of cosmic order. Greek mystery cults believed their gods took animal forms to join with disciples. Egyptian deities were depicted with animal heads, including Hecate, the frog-headed goddess linked to childbirth, resurrection, and the life-giving floods of the Nile. To unite with such beings wasn't considered degradation. It was devotion, a sacred act of joining with the divine, the supernatural, the other. Even the Bible contains echoes of this pattern. Genesis speaks cryptically of the sons of God, who saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and took them as wives. From these unions came the Nephilim, giants, heroes, beings of legend whose very existence suggests that the boundary between human and divine was once more permeable than we might imagine. But why does the transformation require violence? Why must the frog be thrown, beheaded, or burned to complete the change? To ancient minds, creation often came through destruction. Across mythological traditions, we find the same pattern. Sexual union followed by sacrifice. Fertility emerging from death, transformation requiring the violent breaking of one form to reveal another. In Babylonian myth, the world itself is born from violence. Tiamat, the great mother goddess, part woman, part sea serpent, births the first generation of gods from the primordial waters. But when her children rebel, she rises in fury, creating monsters to destroy them. The storm god Marduk steps forward, slaying Tiamat and splitting her body in two. From her corpse he fashions the world. Her ribs become the vault of sky. Her eyes become rivers. Her tail forms the Milky Way. Creation doesn't arrive peacefully in these ancient cosmologies. It's torn from the body of something ancient and strange. The Frog Prince follows this same logic. The mortal girl enters a sacred bargain, unites with the other, and then, at the moment of climax, destroys what she is joined with. Through that destruction, the divine nature is revealed. The curse is broken, the transformation completed. Perhaps in its oldest form, this tale didn't end with a royal wedding, but with the creation of a new world. A new kind of human consciousness born from the violent meeting of mortal and divine. So how did we get from ancient creation myth to Disney romance? The transformation of the Frog Prince reflects a broader cultural shift in how we understand the relationship between civilization and wildness, human and inhuman, sacred and secular. The kiss first appears in later 19th and early 20th century retellings. As editors began softening fairy tales for children's consumption, violence became gentleness, sacred transgression became romantic love, and the terrifying encounter with divine otherness became a comfortable lesson about looking beyond surface appearances. Disney's 2009 adaptation took this sanitization to its logical extreme, relocating the story to Jazz New Orleans, transforming the European princess into an ambitious waitress, and replacing the ancient well with a costume ball. The frog became a charming prince already, cursed by a voodoo witch doctor. And the transformation came through, you guessed it, true love's kiss. It's a beautiful story that preserves exactly none of the original's psychological power or mythic resonance. In our eagerness to make fairy tales safe for children, we've lost something essential: the understanding that transformation is rarely gentle, that wisdom often comes through encountering what we fear, and that the most profound changes in human consciousness have historically required us to face the inhuman, the monstrous, the utterly other. The original Frog Prince wasn't a story about romantic love. It was an initiation tale, a roadmap for navigating the dangerous but necessary encounter between the civilized self and the wild divine forces that exist beyond our understanding. Modern psychology recognizes this pattern in concepts like Carl Jung's shadow integration, the necessity of acknowledging and integrating the parts of ourselves and our world that we find repugnant or terrifying. The princess's violent rejection of the frog, followed by his transformation, mirrors the psychological process by which we must sometimes destroy our comfortable assumptions to discover deeper truths. Today, our fairy tales are shaped not by ancient ritual wisdom, but by algorithmic optimization for engagement and advertiser-friendly content. The complex, sometimes disturbing, psychological and spiritual insights of traditional folklore are flattened into simple moral lessons and romantic fantasies. We've traded the transformative power of encountering the truly other for the comfortable reassurance that differences are only skin deep, that love conquers all, and that transformation comes without cost or violence to our existing sense of self. But perhaps there's value in remembering what the old stories actually said, what they asked of us, and what kind of courage they demanded. The real Frog Prince suggests that meaningful change requires us to honor our promises, even when they terrify us, to share our most intimate spaces with what we don't understand, and to be willing to destroy our comfortable assumptions when the moment of truth arrives. In our current era of environmental crisis, artificial intelligence, and accelerating technological change, we might benefit from the old story's wisdom about learning to live with and learn from forms of intelligence that don't look like us, think like us, or want what we want. The princess's initial disgust and eventual violent acceptance of the frog might serve as a metaphor for humanity's relationship with the non-human intelligence we're increasingly encountering in our world. The old tale suggests that transformation comes not from Disney-style romance, but from the difficult work of honoring our agreements with forms of consciousness we find alien or threatening. So the next time someone tells you the story of the Frog Prince, remember you're not hearing a children's tale about the power of love to see past surface appearances. You're encountering the fossilized remains of a 4,000-year-old ritual text about the violent necessity of transformation, the sacred terror of encountering divine intelligence, and the ancient wisdom that meaningful change requires us to destroy what we think we know about the world and ourselves. The original story offers no comforting kisses, no gentle revelations, no easy morals. Instead, it presents us with the uncomfortable truth that growth requires us to share our most private spaces with what we fear most. And that transformation often looks less like falling in love and more like learning to live with what we can never fully understand or control. Makes you wonder what other children's stories are actually ancient instruction manuals for navigating the deepest mysteries of human consciousness, doesn't it? What sanitized fairy tale should we excavate next? Vote in the comments below, subscribe to join us in the archives. And remember, they're full of questionable life choices that somehow led to profound wisdom.